Hi everyone, my name is Thijs Joosten and today I'm going to show you how we can create a cookie banner ourselves that is compliant with Google consent mode. And I've also added quite some nice tweaks to it that will really make it a little bit more functional than it already was. First, before I explain how to install it and implement it, I'm going to give it to you guys completely for free. You're going to be able to download it. It's quite plug and play. There's a lot of things it can do. There's also things it cannot do that you might be used to from a consent management platform. So what I've created is this cookie banner that you see right here. In terms of looks, it can be completely created differently. So what you see here is that this is just a very simple cookie banner with the text that it shows that you're on this website, and then you can select whichever cookies you would like to have. Once you save your preferences, what it will do is that it will actually select the cookie or send it to the browser and store it there. So you can see that here. You can see here that there is now a cookie called cookie consent, and that contains necessary preferences and marketing. So not statistical, the one that I didn't select. Now if we close this one again and we change the cookie settings, it remembers the preferences that were previously selected. Let's say I also want to do statistical and allow all cookies. What it should do is update here to now also have the statistical cookies in there. So all of this right now works with the consent mode. So if you want all your Google Tag Manager consent to work with it, you can basically install this in a plug and play way, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. But there's also some things it cannot do. So some things that you might be used to from a consent management platform is that they crawl your website, create a list, create an overview of all the cookies that you have on the website. And of course, this doesn't do that. It's not possible to crawl the website and create an overview. So you'll have to do some parts yourself. But in this video, I'm going to show you quite some things on how to do that, how I would do that. And yeah, we're just gonna put it into practice so that everyone can sort of plug and play, try it for yourselves. You can even change all the code by simply pasting it into ChatGPT and trying some different outcomes. If you want to have the banner to look differently, a little bit more fancy, now it's very plain, have an image of your brand in it, it's all possible and probably not too difficult. But for now, I've kept it really functional and just made sure that mostly from the technical side, it's working quite well. Alrighty then, let's dive in. So what have we done? I've created a cookie banner and took quite some chats with ChatGPT that basically gives us a cookie or creates a banner. In this case, it's only the HTML with the different options. It has the slider, the different functionality there for whichever consent you want to select. After that is done, it sort of outputs an event, which I've called cookie consent update, and based on that we can also make everything work. All right, let's dive in. For the purpose or for the sake of showing you exactly how to do it, I'm going to change the the way my website works, or at least remove the current existing GTM container from my website so that we have a completely empty one where I'm going to show you everything completely from the start, how you can set it up. Quickly, I'm going into my browser or into my website and removing my tag manager, old tag manager code. All right. Just pasting the new tag manager code, save the changes. All right, and now I'm going to log out of the website. Perfect. All right, now just to see if everything is working correctly, I'm going to visit my website. And Tag Manager is connected. We are off the ground. There's no cookie banner anymore. There's nothing currently on the website, no tags as well, because everything was related to the cookie banner. But here we go. We have a completely empty GTM account. What I've created for you guys is an export of everything that you need to basically get the cookie banner and everything that works with it. So I'm going to download this. This is going to be publicly available for you, probably at the bottom of the video, comment or whatever. I will specify. But here we go. So we go to, first of all, if you don't know how to implement Google Tag Manager, make sure that you have this code in the head of the website, this in the body of the website. I'm assuming for this video that most people already have it connected and implemented. So I'm just going to show you how to work with the stuff that I've created. What you want to do next is import container from the admin. You choose the container file. That's the file that we have just downloaded. It's going to be this one, GTM cookie consent import file, Thijs Joosten. Nice and convenient naming. I want to merge it with my existing. If you already have stuff in your Google Tag Manager account, you also want to do existing, otherwise you're going to create a new one. I'm going to choose the default workspace, and I don't want to override, I want it to merge with stuff that's already in there. And then override conflicting tags, triggers, and variables, or you can choose to rename. In my case, I'm just going to say override -empty. Normally I will also use this. Only if you have already names that are similar to the ones that I'm adding now, you should choose rename. Confirm. Alright, so basically all that we have done thus far is simply importing the Google Tag Manager. What you would see now is that we have here the code for the cookie banner. And what this shows is the basic HTML right here that can be altered. Just put this code into ChatGPT and ask it to make it fancier for you or change text or whatever. Here the minimized banner button, that's something that also you can just put it into ChatGPT and ask it to customize it. But it works, it functions the way it is. And then here is just the functions of the JavaScript that make sure that the cookie is set, the necessary cookies, the preferences cookies, statistical marketing. I've chosen to store it for 30 days. So once somebody chooses their consent, it stays for 30 days within the cookie. I also made it so that the cookie stays whenever somebody minimizes the consent, opens it again, so that it sort of saves what sort of things they have already selected previously. And that's the majority of what's in here. ChatGPT wrote all of this, not me, but it works, so it's really great. Then there is another important part. So one of the things that's also implemented here is Simon Ahava's cookie consent update, because that's what we need to make our cookie answers. Well, the answers that somebody puts in the banner, we need to sort of transform that into the Google consent mode so that all the other tags automatically understand it. All right, so what I've created here, it will already have my preset settings, so you won't have to do anything here, which is that default consent state will be denied for everything. So everything will be denied. And then what I've created here is the cookie consent update based on replies from the cookie consent banner that we have just created. And here I've chosen some settings. So I've chosen for ad storage to listen to the marketing cookies are being accepted, analytics statistical, user data, personalization, ad personalization, personalization storage. I've all chosen marketing here. Functionality preferences and security I've chosen necessary. You can change this. You can simply change this if you want something else here. You can just select it. This is your choice. Please do check the laws and whatever's involved. I've just put in what to me makes the most sense. But you can all change this to whatever way you want to. What we will also see that has been added is one cookie consent update trigger and one SIMO consent update trigger is what I've called it, but that's the GTM consent update, which I'll show you in a little bit once we go through the website and how it's currently looking, how that works. All right, then the third part, what we had to add is, first of all, that we had to store the cookie consent, that it has to be visible for us to read. So this is a first party cookie that stores the consent that somebody has made, and that's what we saw when we went into the settings here. That was this one, the cookie consent. That's this one. Then what we had to do next was to sort of extract the different values from that cookie, because what you see here is basically one big pile that says necessary preferences, statistical, and marketing. So once again, with the help of ChatGPT, I wanted to create something that basically extracts whether, for example, marketing cookies are part of this, so they are being mentioned here, and being mentioned here means that somebody has accepted the marketing cookies, otherwise it wouldn't show. And then I needed it to get a result back that basically says denied or granted. If it says denied or granted, then it will be the familiar sort of way, the way, of course, that the Google Consent mode is acting. So if we, oh, I'm sorry about that. If we go into the preview mode, then this was a little bit of, well, I wouldn't call it hacking, but what I wanted to do here is, of course, that I had to change this consent state and make sure that it had to be either granted or denied. The part that took me about half an hour was that I had to make sure that this was actually not a capital, because it showed a capital here. So I figured I had to also make it a capital G for granted and D for denied. Took me half an hour basically just to find out that it didn't work if it was with a capital, because the original value were true and false, but with true and false output from ChatGPT it didn't work. I was kind of aware of that. So yeah, so that's important to know. Then the one final thing, of course, I mean, we've already shown it a little bit, but that's what also is integrated with the Google Tag Manager container that you will import, that I've created, is the one called the consent mode for the Google tags, because that's, of course, what SIMO Ahava's consent mode is based off. So in order to be able to use those tags here, you need to have that part, that template here, which is automatically implemented. I've already shown you a little bit of going into the preview modus, or the preview mode, but if I would delete my cookies here, alrighty, what you will see is that we have a cookie bar functioning immediately with the settings that I've shown you before, and essentially this part is now working. Of course, we have nothing in our Tag Manager container yet, so let's say we would add some things. I'm not completely sure if I can just add it with well, basically no data in there. Let's say Google tag 1, 2, 3, 4. Make it fire on. For now, we're going to do all pages, but let's go over actually the consent initialization. We're going to leave it with that for now. GA4 tag. Don't write like this, but I'm just going to put it like that. Then we're going to add some more that would need different ones. For example, the, let's say Google Ads conversion tracking 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which fires on a certain event. Do we have an event? We have no events. Let's just do the conversion linker then. That one can always fire. Do the conversion linker, make it on consent initialization all pages. Google conversion. linker. And then one final one is that we are let's see, do we have like a Snapchat pixel or something? I think we need to use a community tag for there. So I'm just going to quickly do that because that's the one that's not a Google tag. In case you didn't know, you can sort of get a tag template for example, Facebook. Let's say we do, I think this is the one. Just going to add it to the workspace. All right. And then create a basic Facebook conversion for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, which will apply on consent initialization all pages. Facebook pixel. Awesome. All right, so there's one thing now that we see here. And what that is that we fire quite some things, but most of them are on the all pages trigger. So that would mean that it would not listen to, of course, the consent settings that we have just set. And we want it to listen, because that's the entire idea, of course, of the cookie consent bar. And one thing you can change in your Google Tag Manager account is go to the settings and make sure that you enable consent overview. That makes it so that you can see what tags have consent mode active and one don't. So if you go here now, you click on this little shield icon, it's the consent overview. And here you can see a couple things. What you can see, first of all, is that some tags here have built-in consent, and generally those are the Google tags that have consent mode active. What that means is that there's a different result already based on the consent that somebody gives. So for example, for Google Analytics 4 tag that we have right here, if somebody accepts only necessary cookies, we can still load Google Analytics 4 based on this, according to GDPR, not according to e-privacy directive law, but to GDPR it's enough. But it would be anonymized data, for example. If somebody gives them marketing cookies, it would change. There would be a different kind of data that they would automatically then add to it. So for all of those tags that have the built-in consent, we don't need to add anything. We're not going to, or we're going to change one thing actually, but that's it. What we need to do here for the Facebook pixel, for example, or Snapchat, TikTok, basically any platform outside of Google, is that we need to make sure that it sets consent. Here, for example, we know that it's a marketing cookie, so we're going to say require additional consent for tag to fire. And here it already gives the options. We're going to say add storage because it's a marketing cookie. And if you remember correctly, in our cookie consent, we've said that add storage applies or is granted whenever the marketing cookies are granted here. Then there's one thing that we need to do to make sure that the Google Analytics 4 tag and all other tags are working correctly. And that is that we need to add a new trigger. And that's the trigger that we had already created or with the import. Namely, of course, when we just keep it like this, the consent will automatically sort of load, or the pixel will automatically load with consent initialization. But what we want is that when somebody is on the page and they actually change their consent, we don't want the Facebook pixel to not load until a new page is loaded. So what we need to select here is called SIMO consent update. So it's not the cookie consent update, but the SIMO consent update, because SIMO and Java stuff really make sure that we actually get everything to fire. SIMO consent update. All right, we're just going to save that, and we're actually going to save it for all of these. Going to do it like that. We can leave these as is because those don't really do anything, and the cookie consent banner, you don't need to add it to that as well. So what we can do, we can just select all, select SIMO consent update. And here we go. Save. All right. So what happens now if we go into the preview modus? Everything is going to be updated with what we've created. Going to refresh quickly because the consent bar doesn't show. Here we go. All right. What should happen now is that automatically, of course, has it saved my previous consent mode? I don't think so. Let me see. Required additional consent. Shouldn't have this consent right now. Let's see, the Facebook pixel should not require additional consent, and it says add storage, and it doesn't have add storage. I think it may be an issue because it doesn't recognize the Facebook pixel tag yet. It does that sometimes. I've had it previously before. But it shouldn't fire because it required additional consent, and this consent actually is not here. But let's see what happens, all right, when we just give or allow all the cookies. So what should happen now is that the cookie consent update, well, that fires. That makes sure that the somehow have a cookie consent update fires, which then makes sure that we get the GTM consent update. And here it should actually make it so that the Facebook pixel also fires then because of the consent. I think it's giving an issue currently because of the unknown tag type. I've had this before. Sometimes it takes a little while before it recognizes it. Not completely sure why. But what it would be now is that this listens to our Facebook pixel. So if we would close this, just to be sure, going to submit it, custom cookie consent. All right. Let's see how we're doing here. There are still unknown tag types for now, which is annoying. But it's all right, we'll just continue with it. We'll just kind of flow with it for now. The most important part of what I also want to show you right now is that once you have these cookies, of course, we have everything sort of functional right now for the back end. So that means that whenever somebody selects a cookie, we can make sure that it listens to the consent mode and certain tags fire or don't fire. Just by selecting that they need to listen to a certain amount or a certain consent. So in this case, we've had here, for example, for the Facebook pixel, requires additional consent and it needs add storage. It doesn't show it right now. I know it works. You have to trust me on this one, but I have seen this a couple of times where it says unknown tag type, even for Google Analytics, basic Google tag. Not completely sure why, but generally after a little time, it shows the correct ones, which I can also show you in my other active container. But then there's one thing that we still don't have that normal CMPs do have, of course, normal cookie consent management platforms. And that is that we need to have an overview of all the cookies that are currently on the page. So my website currently, it says that, well, there's DoubleClick from Google Ads, there's google.com, there's the moss bar. It says that there is on the website due to, well, an extension that I have right here. So what we should also create is an overview where people can see the cookies that we have. So I've already taken the liberty to sort of create cookies or a page where we can place the cookies here. And what I would suggest that you do, these are not actually the cookies from my website, I've just created it to show you what it would look like, is that you can just go into the browser like I've just done for your website after you've accepted all cookies. And then you just write down what you see. So what sort of cookies do you have? There's nothing on my website just yet, as you know, because it's an empty GTM, but if normally you would have like Facebook and whatever and all of these things. So the cookies that you see here are the ones that I've basically looked up from another website through this way. I've created then all of them into a file, which was right here, and then I asked ChatGPT to create a script for a table that shows in what category each of the cookies should be placed. So you just put this into ChatGPT, and what you will get is something that looks like this. Just a table that you can copy to your website, like I did right here. Right here. And yeah, what you can also add, of course, is a little bit of information about the different domains, what it does, what that cookie wants from you, for example. So DoubleClick is the standard Google Ads, and if you Google like doubleclick.net cookie, for example, or td.doubleclick.net, I'm sure you'll get a lot of information about it. Or you can just use another platform or software to sort of identify all of these cookies. And then you can just put them on the website, and well, people can change their cookies anytime they want from the settings that they have right here. You can also change it to different languages and just have the template there. Some of the things that the cookie banner does not do right now is that it's only in English. So I've not made it so far that it listens to browser language and that there can be different ways. So that's one thing that's different, of course, from a CMP, from a cookie consent management platform. One other thing that is possible with the cookie consent management platform, but not yet, at least with this version that I've created, is that you cannot see right now immediately how many people have accepted your cookies and how many have not, which is of course also nice and interesting to see. It is something that could be created, and I might look into that for a future video to add that as well, or a next version. Then one other thing that this banner does not do is any sort of automated cookie blocking. So it's kind of what you see is what you get. So this is just a very simple banner that makes sure that once somebody enters values within the banner, it makes sure that everything else in your Google Tag Manager can change their way of acting or behaving based on the answer that you've put in. I think that's quite a lot of information. I hope you're able to set it up yourself. And if you're interested in, or if you think this was just nice and that you're finally able to not have any sort of monthly fees of, I don't know, 20 euros a website, $20 a website, then yeah, because those prices, they can add up. It might not be much for some people, for some maybe 20 euros already quite a bit, or 10 euros even. But I think this way you just have to implement it once. It's completely free. You just need to make sure that you update those cookies on the screen itself, on the website, whenever you have made a change. So you need to make sure that this is the one manual thing that normally, of course, a cookie CMP, they crawl your website, they create this table for you. You need to do it yourself based on the browser cookies that you can see that are active. All right. I hope it was clear. I hope it's useful. Please just play around with it. You can ask ChatGPT a lot of things to change if you want it to behave differently. But I think in essence, it's quite simple and quite nice to work with it right now. And it's super simple to implement, especially with the the template that I've created for GTM, where you can just steal all of my settings and make sure it works properly for you. All right, enjoy, I would say.